And that's the last of it, I grunt to myself as I drop the final pile of scrap into the refinery with a sigh. My scouts have been occasionally feeding me updates on the incoming drones, and after the most recent one, I decided to pull my drones back into the confines of the factory. Pausing by the door, I survey the now cleared-out husks of once rubble-filled buildings, which have now been pilfered unrelentingly. All that remains are the many scattered and crumbling walls that mark where there once was a building. I glance over to the significant pile of concrete and other such rubble that I have no use for. A pity that all this stuff is going to waste. I'm sure I'll need it eventually, but until then this junk is just going to stay there. Looking back to my collection of drones that were mostly milling about, I decided to start setting them up. Quickly counting the number of drones, I split my ants into 2 groups of 5 and formed them into lines on each side of the doorframe to the main room. Grabbing up my 10 spider drones, I instruct them to use their climbing ability to place them above the door. Lastly, with the final drones, I hold them in reserve so they can help where needed. My scouts alert me to their position right outside of the factory. Grabbing a fallen metal desk, I position it in front of me as a makeshift shield. I take a deep breath to calm my nerves, and then the doors burst open and the first pair buzz into the room. Immediately, 4 of my spider drones drop onto the hornets with a thunderous thunk in order to hold them down for my ants to finish them off. But before the ants manage to do so, the next pair in line seems to have noticed the offending spiders and proceeded to impale 2 of them, freeing one of their comrades in the process. My ants hurriedly scuttle forward and chomp down onto the downed hornet's neck, finishing it off. The ants and a couple of the hounds on the other side attempt to do the same to the freed hornet, but unfortunately it seems that it had managed to fly out of their grasp. Thinking quickly, I grab a nearby pole off the ground and throw it towards the escaping hornets. And with a satisfying crunch, the hornet is impaled by the pole and falls to the ground with a thud. Before I could celebrate the successful throw, a spike pierces my upper forearm. I quickly recoil from the pain, although slightly duller than I would have expected, and back up into cover. Risking a quick peek, I poke my head from behind my shield, and just as quickly I shoot back without getting a good look as another salvo of the spikes slams into the shield. Wincing from the pain, I get up and stagger to the side before the hornets are able to rearm over to my ants. Ordering one to grab the lacerated corpse of the hornet, I open up the description for the drone. The Atmospheric Heavy Lancer, or the AHL, is a slow but powerful striker drone meant for long-ranged engagements. They were designed to be used as long-range support drones meant to aid melee drones from afar, highly vulnerable to ambushes from behind or the sides, and is ineffective against large mobs of drones due to long rearming times. Can be constructed in a medium drone works. Using a large chunk of my scrap, I order 2 pairs of the new drones, and I refocus my attention on the 3 hornets left outside. According to the scouts currently observing the engagement, the hornets seem to have taken up defensive positions, content to hover around and wait us out. Then a familiar screech pierces across the sky, and in comes the large flock of robotic birds soaring straight to the hornets. The hornets turn to face the new threat and fire a volley of pikes toward the incoming swarm, but this time the swarm has learned its tricks and quickly dodges out of the way before going back to dicing for the hornets. The flock and hornets clash, and it is quite easy to see that the few hornets are no match for the substantially larger force of birds, but they still put up a fight. One manages to fire off a random pike that finds punches in the lead bird's shoulder area, which causes it to fall and crash down on a ruined building. Do birds have shoulders? But that's aside from the point. I grab a few spiders and place them on my still aching arm for field repairs as I walk out of the base, not bringing any other drones in case the flock deems them a threat. Scuttling over to crash site to maybe find a very useful blueprint, I clamber my way up the rubble, and the head of the lead bird immediately snaps to my position. Ducking back immediately, I start fearing that it will pull itself up, and I will be able to do nothing to stop it from scraping me. But as a multitude of moments passed, I experienced no such occurrence. Risking another peek, I find that the bird is still staring straight at me. Gathering what little courage my little factory worker mind could muster, I step out of cover toward the robotic beast. The bird continues to stare me down as I slowly inch closer to its head, and once I reached over to the impaled shoulder of the bird, it suddenly screeched into the sky. Near immediately, a half-dozen birds break from the flock and surround me. I quickly raise my arms to try and protect myself, but strangely enough, they don't immediately attack. One of them hops down and points at me with its beak. and then points to the spike in their leader's shoulder. Hesitantly, I walk over to the spike and put my hands around the spike and look to the bird for confirmation. The bird backs off, which I interpret as continue, and so I grip on tight and pull upwards. The spike slowly makes its way out of the drone's shoulder, and the others do not attack, which is the best sign that I can really hope for right now. The spike finally slides out completely, and I set it down on the ground, after which I grab one of my spiders and place it in the hole. The drone quickly gets to work and rewires most of the components inside of the appendage, but seems to be unable to do much more. Picking the spider up and stepping a few paces back, the lead bird tentatively pushes itself upright and experimentally flaps its wings. Seeming to find it mostly working, the drone lifts off, and with the rest of its flock, who have finished fighting the hornets several moments ago, off into the distance. As I watch them fly off into the distance, a new message appears in front of me, which I curiously open to find something unexpected. "A reputation screen?" I ask out loud to no one in particular. After a quick search on how to go to said screen, I finally find that I just have to think open, close foreign faction relations. The screen that popped in front of me was what could be compared to a spreadsheet with the names of factions I had encountered. Current relations, along with a small bar with some marks. Recent relation-changing events, and a scale of relative power compared to myself. The first on the list were the Tower tribe, who were, as a whole, not too happy with me with their collective reputation sitting at 40. Under the tribe's name was a small list of sub-factions in the tribe, which consisted of the Council of Elders, which I equated to being the leaders, tribal guardsmen, and the tribal citizens. The council did not like me one bit with their score of 35, probably because I held one of their kids as a hostage. The guardsmen have a slightly appreciative attitude towards me with their 55 relations after I saved one of them, so that's nice. Lastly, sitting at a solid 50 tribal citizens are uncaring about me, which is all right with me for the time being. At the very bottom of the tower, tribe's relations section was the lined bar, and looking from left to right, it showed the current status of the relationship. The marks went from sworn enemy to steadfast ally, and the little blue tick mark that represented the Tower tribe sat around uneasy neighbors, and their relative power was slightly inferior. The next on the list of factions are the Outskirt Aerial Attack Flock, whom I am going to be referring to as just the Flock. With their reputation score at 55, their scale slates them into the friendly neighbors, and their power is similar. And last but not least, Undetermined AI Core, who does not like me one bit with a score of 10. The relation bar puts our relation at adversary, and its relative power reads unknown. At asterisk. Well, that's slightly concerning. Asterisk. I close the screen and walk back into the base. Looking around, I realize that I haven't sent my drones back to work, which I swiftly do. After the dust settles from all the drones rushing about, I see that the hounds, moose, and the newly constructed hornets do not have anything to do. Deciding that I do not need them anywhere home currently, I send all of them out to act as a patrol squad. With nothing to do with myself, I walk outside and start helping the drones bring the new scrap corpses into the refinery. Hours later, around midnight, I get a message from my rats again. Opening it up, it reads that they have found the other AI base and that it was about a day's travel away. Along with the message, they sent a handful of pictures of the base. The base looked like an old mining system with plenty of large drills and spotlights strewn about the area. In the pictures, there were multiple sets of patrol groups wandering around the compound. The patrol groups were comprised of hornets, which were found in squads of 4, and large 10-legged drones, whose 2 frontal legs were significantly larger than the others, which were always in pairs. While my scouts were unable to get much closer without risking being spotted, this was still very useful information. Walking over to my medium drone works, I order another pair of hounds and hornets along with another batch of 5 spiders. After I finish with that, I call back the patrol group and replace them with 2 pairs of ants with their escorts to be the new guards. With that, I now have my own attack squad, which is made up of 5 hounds, 5 hornets, and a small group of logistical repair and rearming drones. I set off with my newly formed group along with some emergency repair materials towards the AI mining base. A half day goes by, and the rat scouts ahead of me that are, well scouting, inform me that a pair of those other 10-legged drones and accompanying hornets are incoming. Looking around my current surroundings, I decided to set up my own hornets on the top of the nearby buildings and hide my logistics team far away from where combat will occur. With my canine squad, I moved into a building on the right, which was a little bit behind the Hornets' sniper positions. Ordering my Hornets to hold fire, I sat down on a nearby chair that I thought could hold my weight and began to wait for the enemy to come to me. The chair could not in fact hold my weight and broke after 5 minutes of sitting. Another 15 minutes go by, until my Hornets on the roofs notice the incoming group. Momentarily, I hop into the closest one's view to get a better look. The enemy Hornets were slowly buzzing their way forwards around the height of the second story of one of the buildings, which was comparatively low to the current position of my Hornets. The grounded drone slowly stomped its way forward, and zooming in, I could now get a good look at one. They were about as long and tall as a car, but were twice the width of one, including the legs. The front legs, which were positioned slightly upright so as not to scrape the ground, were quite thick and could likely crush me. On the right frontal leg was a drill with the width of a small yoga ball at its base. The other leg was what looked like a jaw with blocky and thin teeth, which could probably fit one of my spiders quite easily. Now that I think of it, it looks quite like a crab. As the group moves closer and closer to my position, I order my Hornets to aim for the flyer and fire in 3, 2, 1, fire. The metal spikes quickly pierced 3 of the 4 enemy Hornets, but the last one managed to dodge the spike that was aimed at them. Quickly, I hop back into my vessel's view and order my hounds to attack the crab walkers. I and my drones burst through the door and begin to wail on the closest crab's legs, bringing them down to the side. The crab quickly reacts to the sudden loss of its right legs and uses its right frontal leg as a support to keep balance. While it does that, the remaining enemy Hornet fires a spike and nails one of my Hornets in the abdomen, disabling the poor drone. The crab on the left decides to help his buddy by climbing behind the first and uses its left leg to grab onto one of my hounds and crushes it. The other crab then activates its front right leg, causing it to begin willingly and attempts to strike to the closest hound but misses by a few feet when my hound realizes what is happening and dodges. As all that was happening, my 4 remaining Hornets were rearmed and fired once again at the remaining Hornets and one of the crabs. The Hornets managed to take the opposing Hornet down and land 2 spikes on the previously undamaged crab body. 2 of the hounds quickly took this opportunity and punched on the impaled crab with righteous fury, scurrying into the insides of the crab from the holes the spikes made and ripping up its insides. The remaining hounds continue to tear the downed crab apart, and I use my fist to crack open part of the drone's shell. And with that, the ambush was over. Calling for the logistics team to patch up that one Hornet that got hit, I also scanned the crab and pulled up its description. The Industrial Mining Excavator, or IME, are designed to strip mine long shafts of excavation sites and deliver the resources to specialized drones. While meant for menial labor, they are still incredibly strong and could highly damage even military-grade drones. The one weakness for the IME is that it is only armored enough to handle loose rocks falling on it instead of direct combat, can be constructed at a large drone works.